Have you ever stepped outside and immediately run into that same neighbor again and again? Do you get the eerie feeling that someone knows just a little too much about your personal life, details you've never shared? What if your neighbor isn't just nosy? What if they're monitoring you? Before we dive into this eye-opening topic, take a moment to subscribe to the channel. We're here to help you protect your peace, sharpen your awareness, and apply Stoic philosophy to modern life, because sometimes staying calm means knowing exactly what to watch out for. Let's talk about the 5 warning signs that your neighbor's curiosity has crossed a dangerous line, from innocent to invasive. 1. They coincidentally appear over and over again. Let's begin with what might seem like a trivial detail. Your neighbor is always outside when you are. You step out for a walk, and there they are, pretending to check the mailbox. You come back with groceries, and suddenly they're watering a plant that hasn't needed watering all week. Initially, you might laugh it off. What a coincidence, you tell yourself. After all, it's a free world. People can come and go as they please. Maybe they're just sociable. Maybe they just have great timing. But then it keeps happening. Morning, afternoon, evening. Every time you open your door, they're already there or appear shortly after. Not just once or twice, but consistently. A pattern begins to form, and it begins to feel less like coincidence and more like choreography. Their movements seem tied to yours. That's when it's time to stop brushing off your unease. Here is where Stoicism gives us a powerful tool: the discipline of perception. Marcus Aurelius, in his Meditations, reminds us not to be fooled by appearances or our wishes. We must see the world as it truly is, not as we hope it to be. Wishful thinking, the idea that your neighbor is just unusually friendly or coincidentally aligned with your schedule, can blind you to a more uncomfortable truth. You are being observed. This pattern of constant presence isn't necessarily friendly. It can be a covert form of monitoring, a quiet encroachment on your autonomy. Think of it like background noise that never goes away. Over time, that noise chips away at your comfort until your home no longer feels like a private refuge. You may find yourself adjusting your routine, delaying your outings or peeking through the window before stepping outside. This is the hallmark of subtle psychological pressure. When you begin changing your behavior to avoid someone else's gaze, they already occupy space in your mind. And that's not harmless. Surveillance doesn't always look like cameras or listening devices. Sometimes it's human. Someone positioning themselves to always run into you is still a form of quiet control. It gives them information about your habits, your rhythms, even your emotional state. And once someone has consistent data on you, they can begin to manipulate or intimidate without ever saying a word. Seneca said, "He who fears death will never do anything worthy of a man who is alive." In a similar spirit, we might say, "He who fears conflict will never defend his own peace." Stoicism does not tell us to be passive. It tells us to be rational, calm, and brave in the face of adversity. If your neighbor's behavior raises red flags, don't gaslight yourself into silence. Instead, observe, document, and calmly assert your right to space. Start by tracking the frequency of these coincidental meetings. Keep a log, nothing elaborate, just notes, date, time, your activity, and their presence. This isn't paranoia, it's pattern recognition. The same way you might track symptoms before visiting a doctor, you're gathering data to understand what's really going on. Then, reflect. Is their presence accompanied by interaction? Do they linger without reason? Do they seem to appear only when you're alone or at specific times of day? These details matter. Patterns often speak louder than words. Once you're certain it's not your imagination, you have a choice. Ignore, confront, or take protective steps. Stoicism teaches us to focus only on what is within our control. You cannot control their behavior, but you can control how you respond. You might choose to limit your exposure, use blinds, vary your schedule, or install motion-sensitive lights or privacy screens. These small actions are not acts of aggression, but of boundary setting. If the situation escalates, consider a neutral confrontation. A direct question. Hey, I've noticed you're outside a lot when I am. Everything. Okay? Can be revealing. Watch how they respond. Do they deflect, laugh it off nervously, or become defensive? Often the truth hides in their reaction, not their words. And remember, true Stoicism is not about being unfeeling or detached from the world. It is about protecting your internal fortress, your peace of mind, from unnecessary invasion. Epictetus taught that while we cannot always choose what happens to us, we always have power over how we interpret and react to events. If someone is infringing upon your comfort in your own home, you are not obligated to tolerate it in silence. In the end, trust your instincts. We are animals, and like all animals, we have a deep and ancient ability to sense when something is off. Don't let politeness override your inner warning system. Coincidence has its limits. When someone appears every time you do, it is no longer random, it is intentional. Let them watch if they must. But let them also learn this. You are not easily intimidated, and your peace is guarded not just by walls, but by clarity, courage, and the quiet strength of a stoic mind. 2. Cameras that don't face their own property. We live in a time when surveillance is as common as fences. Security cameras have become a part of everyday life, for good reason. People install them to protect their homes, deter theft, and feel a sense of control over their environment. But like many tools, the intention behind their use matters. When a neighbor's camera doesn't face their own door, car, or backyard, but instead points toward your windows, your driveway, or your private garden, it stops being about security and begins to resemble something else: quiet domination. This kind of surveillance may be legal in some jurisdictions, but legality and morality are not the same. Stoic philosophy emphasizes living in accordance with nature, which includes respecting the natural rights and boundaries of others. When someone intentionally monitors areas that have nothing to do with their safety and everything to do with your personal life, they cross an invisible yet sacred line. The discomfort this causes isn't just theoretical. You may begin to feel observed even in your most private moments. Changing clothes in your bedroom, sitting quietly in your garden, leaving for work in the morning. Activities that once felt mundane now carry the weight of being watched. This psychological burden is a form of invisible harassment, and it can slowly eat away at your peace of mind. The ancient Stoics would not have understood modern technology, but they knew a great deal about intrusive behavior. Marcus Aurelius frequently wrote about protecting the inner citadel, the mind and soul of the individual. Your home is an extension of that citadel. When someone uses tools to peer through your defenses, they are not just invading space, they are undermining your sense of agency. What should you do if you find yourself in this situation? First, remove self-doubt. Many people hesitate to act because they fear being labeled paranoid or difficult. But Stoicism teaches us not to be ruled by fear of others' opinions. Epictetus said, "If you want to improve, be content to be thought foolish and stupid." In other words, trust your judgment. If you feel uncomfortable, that feeling is valid. Second, gather facts. Use your phone to take photos or videos showing the direction of the cameras. Are they clearly pointed at your windows? Is there no valid reason they would need to face your home rather than their own? Facts protect you from emotional misinterpretation and help you build a rational, calm response. Third, assess the level of risk. Are they just watching, or are they also interacting with your life in other ways, such as making comments about things they shouldn't know? If so, it's no longer about security and it's about control. Surveillance in the wrong hands becomes a form of soft power. And the purpose of power for some people is not to protect, but to dominate. From a Stoic viewpoint, your next action must be guided not by anger, but by clarity. Anger clouds judgment, but assertiveness rooted in virtue, that's strength. If you feel safe doing so, approach them directly and politely. "Hey, I've noticed one of your cameras seems to point toward our house. Would you mind adjusting it?" Watch their reaction. Reasonable people listen. Controlling people deflect, deny, or become aggressive. If the issue remains unresolved, consider installing visual obstructions, privacy screens, hedges, or blinds. You can also invest in your own cameras, if only to document behavior. And if you feel threatened, don't hesitate to speak with a local authority or consult legal resources. As Stoics, we act within the system to restore balance, not out of vengeance, but out of responsibility to ourselves and those who live with us. Remember, you are not being oversensitive. You are responding to an intrusion on your dignity. You don't need anyone's permission to reclaim your space. The ancient Stoics faced hostile emperors and chaos. You can handle a camera. 3. They know too much, without you telling them. A chilling sign that something is amiss is when your neighbor begins referencing information they shouldn't have. They comment on your visitors, your schedule, or even conversations you had inside your home. You haven't shared anything with them, and yet they know. Maybe they casually mention your friend from out of town, or they bring up your recent time off work when you never told them. You begin to wonder, how do they know all this? This isn't idle gossip, this is targeted awareness. And if it feels like surveillance, that's because it likely is. Invasive. Neighbors can use subtle methods to gather information, watching your comings and goings, listening through thin walls, or even installing technology like directional microphones. But the most insidious method is psychological, the appearance of casual familiarity to lower your guard. The Stoic response here is not panic, but mindfulness. Epictetus warned that we are disturbed not by things, but by the view we take of them. When someone knows too much, you must resist the urge to immediately respond emotionally. Instead, treat their comment like a clue. Ask yourself, what does this tell me about how they are observing me? How is the information getting out? If you live in close proximity, remember that sound carries. Conversations near windows, on balconies, or in yards are often more audible than we think. But when they mention details that could only be heard from inside or reference private digital activities, it's time to consider deeper breaches. Could your Wi-Fi be vulnerable? Have you ever lent them access to your home, even briefly? Some people view other people's lives as puzzles to be solved. They collect data not out of curiosity, but out of a need to feel control, to be in the know. This is not neighborly behavior, it's a boundary violation. And in Stoic terms, it represents a breakdown of character. A virtuous person respects privacy. A controlling person invades it. What can you do? First, change your habits. Limit what you say outdoors. Close windows when discussing personal matters. Use headphones for private calls. These small actions may feel limiting at first, but they reinforce control over what you share. Second, monitor your digital and physical spaces. Change Wi-Fi passwords regularly. Review device connections. If you suspect a deeper intrusion, consider consulting a privacy expert. Modern technology makes it easy to spy, but also easier to detect. Third, observe their language. If they bring up something personal, don't react emotionally. Respond with a neutral question. Oh, how did you know that? Their answer can reveal a lot. Defensiveness, overconfidence, or backpedaling. Often, people who invade privacy are proud of what they know, They want you to feel watched. But once you confront them with calm curiosity, their grip weakens. And finally, adopt the Stoic stance of internal protection. Marcus Aurelius said, "The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts." Don't allow someone else's behavior to stain your peace. Protect your mental boundaries as fiercely as your physical ones. Even if you cannot immediately stop a nosy neighbor from watching or listening, you can stop them from influencing how you feel about your life. That is the ultimate Stoic victory, maintaining serenity in the presence of disorder. In the end, your life is not a public event. Your thoughts, relationships, and choices are your own. When someone tries to pierce the veil of your privacy without consent, they are attacking something sacred. Respond not with fear, but with focused resolve. You are not being paranoid. You are being aware. You are not being dramatic. You are being honest. And as the Stoics would agree, the greatest power lies in knowing what is yours and defending it without unnecessary fear or rage. 4. Subtle clues around your property. Not all intrusions begin with a broken window or a kicked-in door. In fact, the most dangerous violations often start in silence, unnoticed, unremarkable, and easy to dismiss. A garden gate, you remember, closing is now slightly ajar. A doormat looks just a few inches off from where you left it. The trash can has been moved, but you're certain you didn't touch it. These are the subtle cues that your space has been entered. Not by mistake, but with intention. It's easy to wave these things off. Maybe it was the wind. Maybe a delivery driver stepped on the doormat and didn't put it back. Maybe your memory is just playing tricks on you, and sometimes that's true. But it's the habit of ignoring these details that creates risk. Our minds are wired for pattern recognition. When something feels off, it often is, even if our conscious mind hasn't fully figured out why yet. The Stoic philosopher Epictetus emphasized the importance of awareness and discipline. In discourses, he says, if someone succeeds in provoking you, realize that your mind is complicit in the provocation. What this means in practice is that we must learn to trust the signals our reason and intuition send us. We are not paranoid for noticing the world around us. We are not overthinking when we question the inconsistencies in our own environment. We are simply observing. And observation is the first step toward understanding and protection. Subtle property disturbances are not just signs that someone might be lurking. They can also be a test. Manipulators, stalkers, or nosy neighbors often start small. They want to see what they can get away with. If they nudge your boundaries and you do nothing, it sends a message. This person doesn't notice, or they don't care. And that gives an intruder the confidence to escalate. This is why it's so important to pay attention. Take photos of how you leave your property. Note the time you close your gate. Keep a small journal of any irregularities, even if they seem trivial. Over time, patterns may emerge, and what seemed like coincidence can transform into clear evidence. From a Stoic perspective, this vigilance is not about living in fear. Marcus Aurelius wrote in Meditations, "If you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your estimate of it. Fear is a reaction, but awareness is a choice. You do not need to panic when things feel off. You only need to prepare and remain calm. You are responsible for your response, not the actions of others, but how you meet those actions. Remember, safety is not just about locks and cameras, it's about attention. If you know your environment well, how your property usually looks, how the sounds of your home change throughout the day, what normal feels like, then you will recognize the abnormal instantly. That awareness gives you a powerful edge. In practical terms, consider small security upgrades. Install motion sensor lights around your yard. Place a small security camera near your entrance. Even a visible dummy camera can act as a deterrent. Talk to your neighbors and build a rapport with those who live around you. Community awareness can be a strong line of defense. Ultimately, the goal is not to live in suspicion. It's to remain prepared. Your home is your sanctuary. Any sign of intrusion, no matter how small, deserves your attention. By responding early, not with fear, but with resolve, you take back control. You choose to act instead of freeze. So, when your gate is hanging open, when the doormat is out of place, or when the dog barks at nothing, don't just shrug. Take note. And remember, the mind that notices small things is the same mind that prevents large disasters. 5. When curiosity turns into obsession. There's a point where casual interest becomes something far more disturbing. It starts innocently enough. A neighbor waves too often. Someone in your building asks a few too many questions about your schedule. Maybe they comment on how they always seem to see you at a specific time. At first, it might feel flattering. Someone notices you, but then it shifts. They know your habits. They know when you leave, when you return, what you wear, who visits. They've gone from observing to tracking. This is where curiosity crosses into obsession. And obsession is dangerous. The most unnerving part is that this behavior doesn't always look threatening on the surface. The person may smile, they may act polite or friendly, but underneath the surface they're developing a fixation, not just on your actions, but on you as a person. They begin to treat your routine as something that belongs to them. Your privacy becomes their interest, your movements, their entertainment or agenda. Stoicism teaches us not to fear what we cannot control, but it also demands that we act when something is within our power. As Marcus Aurelius noted, you have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. You may not be able to stop someone from watching you, but you can document what you see. You can limit what information they get. You can speak up. The first signs of obsession are often subtle. They might text too often, show up in places where you never invited them, ask personal questions that seem out of place, dismiss your discomfort with phrases like, "I'm just being friendly," or "you're overreacting." These are red flags, and yet many people ignore these warnings, sometimes out of politeness, sometimes out of fear. Stoicism calls us to clarity, to courage. If your gut tells you something is off, don't ignore it. Our instincts are part of our evolutionary intelligence. They were designed to keep us alive, to detect danger long before it announces itself openly. Start by documenting. Write down what happened, when, and what was said or done. Keep screenshots if texts or messages feel invasive. If someone crosses a boundary, whether physical or emotional, make a note of it. Over time, a clear pattern can emerge, and that pattern is essential if you ever need to speak to authorities or seek legal protection. Next, reduce your digital visibility. Make your social media profiles private. Remove location tags from your posts. Be cautious about what personal information you share online. Even seemingly harmless details like your favorite coffee shop or regular jogging route can be used. To predict your movements, Stoicism also reminds us to protect our peace of mind. Don't let someone else's obsession steal your sense of safety. Take steps to re-establish boundaries. Speak calmly but firmly if you need to say, "I don't feel comfortable with that." You do not owe anyone your time, your routine, or your vulnerability. In situations where things escalate, involve others. Talk to trusted friends or neighbors. Let someone know what's happening, and if necessary, contact authorities or legal counsel. The earlier you take action, the easier it is to regain control. Obsession is not a compliment, it's a violation. And the Stoic path, far from being passive, calls us to take deliberate, courageous action when something threatens our internal harmony or external safety. In the end, your job is not to fix or change the person who's fixated on you. Your job is to protect your peace, maintain your boundaries, and act with courage and wisdom. You are not helpless. You are not alone. You are simply being called, as the Stoics would say, to live in accordance with nature. And nature, in this case, demands action. Living next to someone shouldn't mean living under surveillance. Your home should be a place of stillness, where your mind is free, your boundaries respected, and your dignity intact. If you recognize these signs, stay calm, but stay alert. You don't need to respond with anger, but you do need to respond with clarity. Thanks for watching. If this resonated with you, subscribe for more grounded, real-world self-protection strategies through the lens of Stoic wisdom. Share this with someone who might need it, and remember, peace isn't given, it's protected.